Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be doing my 14.3 top lane tier list. So if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. There were a decent amount of buffs and nerfs this patch. We saw a couple of shifts in kits, some quality of life changes to a couple of champions, and then some like role repositioning. So let's cover it. To begin with, Shyvana got buffed. This was mostly towards AP jungle. AP jungle is mostly low elo skewed. You don't tend to see AP Shyvana in higher ranks. She tends to just fall off at that point. AD Shyvana, however, does tend to see a bit of play with a mid/high elo. However, that is underperforming at the moment, and as these buffs were mostly focused towards AP, she's going to stay in the C tier. She needs a decent amount to move out of here, actually. I imagine that if she was to receive some sort of health regen buff, or some sort of AD growth, or just something within her kit which like helps her tackle on some of the bruises within the top lane, then she would rise up, but for the most part, she's going to stay within the C tier. Teemo is going to move up to the A tier, so he got hotfix buffed on 14.2b. They over nerfed him in the 14.2 patch, which definitely hurt him a decent amount. The E buffs were nice. They gave him back, I believe, 5% AP ratio on the E on hit, and then gave him an additional amount of flat damage on the on hit, kind of encouraging him to be autoing more often. These changes definitely did push him back up in towards the A tier. The reason why I'm moving him now, though, is because he received a slight quality of life change towards his Q. It'll be very power neutral, but he is definitely qualifying of a solid A tier pick. Yorick is going to move up to the A tier, so he did a bunch of changes towards Yorick this patch, and overall it was a very net positive change. He received, his maiden received a bit of an adjustment where it no longer has a 2-second lockout for when you can auto and apply the on hit. However, that damage is now a bit lower. He has some other quality of life changes in amongst his kit as well, and yeah, it's definitely given him a decent amount of power. I'm going to put him in the A tier. However, consider him a good A tier option as more people learn his builds, experiment with certain things, and I imagine he will definitely be close to the S tier. Wukong was the other champion. He's going to move up to the B tier. The buffs were relatively small. It was a bit of AD ratio on the Q, a bit of attack speed on the E, I believe, and then a bit more range on the Q at early ranks. Overall, these changes, not big on their own, have amounted to enough to kind of push him up back into the beta. He's still not great. I wouldn't really recommend playing Wukong. If you want to play him anywhere, play him in the jungle. He tends to be a little bit more performant there. But yeah, he's a decent B tier pick. If kind of towards the lower end, actually, if anything. Nerfed Azir. So he lost 2 health regen this patch, which is a decent amount. It makes him a bit more punishing within lane, especially now that he's running fleet. It makes him really hard to move. Having that, losing a bit of that health regen definitely makes him a bit more movable. He's still a decent pick. You're really picking him for the fact that he is a really insane late game AP carry. He does so much damage with his sand soldiers. Once you have Nash's online, you're super useful. There's just lots of power to this champion, so he's a solid A tier pick. He tends to just outperform in the top lane compared to mid lane, but tends to be a bit more niche here. Rengar is going to move down to the A tier. So Rengar got nerfed primarily because of his oppressive jungle at the moment. Hubris into Profane Hydra makes a great 2-item core there. In the top lane, he's not as performant. You mostly see him played by one tricks. You need to get those advantages. Otherwise, he does struggle against some of the more bruisier and tankier options. Overall, yeah, losing a bit of AD growth on the Q combined with a bit of base health loss definitely did hurt him in the top lane. So he's now towards the bottom of the A tier. If you're not proficient of a champion, don't play him. He's more like a BC tier option. Trundle is going to be within the A tier. So Trundle received a decent nerf this patch, losing 10 flat damage off the Q at all ranks. Combined with that, he lost, I believe, 36 base health. These changes have definitely put him down a tier. He can still contest really nicely against most tanks, and is very good against AD bruisers, being able to value the stats still and both the AD still. So there's still power there. He's still a great split pusher, just not as powerful as before, so he finds himself within the A tier. He's also quite obvious. It's quite obvious how the Trundle's going to play out. He's a very simplistic champion, which is both a strength and a weakness of him. Karma is going to stay within the A tier, so I never originally put Karma in the S tier. I still don't believe she was an S tier pick unless you were playing at very elite levels. She was always kind of like an A tier pick. She's definitely strong with the likes of Malignance and Cosmic Drive, giving her a lot of power. You can also pick up things like a Horizon Focus, but she finds herself towards the bottom of the A tier. Losing 20% AP ratio on the Q definitely did hurt her. She also lost a bit of flat on that as well, so those changes have put her down towards the bottom of the A tier. Adjusted, so Illaoi is going to move up to the S tier. Illaoi is performing really well at the moment. She had her tentacles range extended for a bit of a trade-off in damage, but the range is so powerful, it makes her super obnoxious to play against. She can hit you from farther away, it makes her a bit more safer to play. Yeah, it gave her a lot of power, and in turn gave her a lot of win rate, so she finds herself within the S tier. Maokai is going to move up to the S plus tier, so Maokai is going to go ahead of, you know, I'll put him in between Aatrox and Darius. So Maokai is an incredibly strong S plus pick at the moment. They buff, well, they adjusted him to get him out of the support role, but ended up just buffing him in both jungle and top lane. And top lane Maokai was already a decent pick. He had been sat in my S tier since the beginning of the season. Now he finds himself within the S plus tier. Both him and Zac make for great tank options. I'd really recommend trying either of them if you enjoy the tank class. Yeah, he's a very strong option at the moment. The changes definitely did help him within the top lane. There was a decent amount of like level scaling and mana reductions, which allows him to trade a bit more often and not be so reliant on tier. Vayne is going to move up into my S plus tier. So Vayne is, I mean, everyone knows how strong Vayne is at the moment. This champion is giga oppressive to play against. She scales really well. She has a decent early. She's safe with Fleet and Ghost. She can opt into Swifties. She can go like a lethality kind of variant if you're going Q-Max. Picks up like an Essence Reaver, does a huge amount of damage. She can also just opt into like a static Triforce variant. It tends to be a little less performant, but that's also there. She can also opt into an on-hit variant if you're going like a lethal tempo Kraken Slayer, Ginsu's variant. But there's just so much power to this champion. She has a lot of build options at the moment. She works in both bot lane and top lane. She counters almost all the top laners in the game at the moment. There are very few which are like actual strong answers to her. And yeah, she just finds herself within the S plus tier because of this. Plus the fact that everyone now no longer has access to armor and magic resist, and it's now just health, meant that people got tankier, but for Vayne, the damage stayed the same as she does maximum health true damage. Yeah, so she's very strong at the moment. Solid S plus pick. Same goes for Fiora. Fiora also really strong at the moment. I really wish they'd just get rid of the cripple on the W. It doesn't need a 50% slow and attack speed cripple. It's just too much. It basically just rewards you for not using the skill shot, for not using the W for what it's intended to, which I mean isn't like the worst thing in the world, but when it's as frustrating as Fiora, and she's already incredibly strong and impressive in other natures, can be quite irritating. But yeah, Fiora, also like Vayne, benefiting from everyone having more health, does a huge amount of damage, oppressive on side lanes, oppressive in 1v1s. Not great at the team fight, but still a solid option if you're looking for someone to do a huge amount of damage, just threaten against most top laners. She's there. Mordekaiser is going to move down to the S tier, not because I suddenly think he's a lot weaker, but because there's just so many S plus picks at the moment, and a lot of them do answer him. Both Vayne and Fiora are great options into Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser just tends to be a solid answer to a lot of the rest of the pool. Illaoi specifically, Mordekaiser's great into Illaoi. I do want to cover, is buffed with Hullbreaker. Whether this interaction will stay around for long, we don't know, but he's definitely in a very good spot. He leads the A tier, close to the S tier. However, he definitely does struggle in high elo compared to a lot of the other options, which is why I'm going to leave him within the A tier. Twisted Fate is going to move it up to my S tier, however, though. I believe Twisted Fate is a kind of sleeper OP top laner at the moment. The AD crit, one-hit variations all work really nicely. He's a four-way flex pick at the moment. You can also just opt into standard AP if you need to. Roa got buffed this patch, and that's huge for him. Yeah, there's just so many variations of Twisted Fate you can go. You can kind of work around whatever your opposing lane is going to opt into. Yeah, really good lane bully at this point. Solid scaling, good mid-game, good roams with his ultimate. Yeah, there's just a lot of power with this champion, and he makes for a solid S-tier pick. Within the mid lane, S+, like, he's just one of the best mid laners, if not just the straight-up best at the moment. Yeah, Twisted Fate, great option. So, that's my 14.3 top lane tier list. If you, yeah, cool. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next one. Goodbye.